friends. Let's continue on our fantastic journey. So we're going to talk to Metro here.
I've been thinking
like a lot
about
of
your
them,
case.
a lot of the conversations in the game it is optional, but there's a lot of
Are you sure you're
interesting dialogue in
Mercedes
here.
Colomar?
Yes. Would you like to see my birthmark?
I actually think this.
Sure. Where is it?
It's
I don't want to call it the
just
best
my
conversation in the
skin.
game because I'll probably say that several times if I start doing that. But
Anything about your past? you
it's
haven't
really
told me?
funny.
Quite a bit,
It's got some great
considering I've told you
lines in it, and there's some brilliant stuff which
you
you maybe
kill
just wouldn't
much when
think
you were alive?
think about when you're asking
Very
them. Like
little.
you ask questions like, "Where's your birthmark?" and she's like, "Well, I don't know where my skin is." You know, she doesn't understand this world. She doesn't know where she is.
Never killed anybody.
And then
I have to confess. I
stuff
never
like, "Is there
killed
anything you haven't
anybody.
told me?" Like we said just then.
Not even a teensy
And she's
bit
like,
of
"Well, I haven't
killing?
told you anything."
Maybe I just
So,
wasn't trying hard enough.
yeah, I just think it's a really well put together
Were you a big
scene,
shoplifter?
and this
Well,
little
they accused
series
me of
here,
it
where you
once.
ask her a bunch of different things
But it
about
wasn't
whether
my fault. That puppy
she's
followed me
committed
out
any
of the
crimes or
store.
anything.
Oh,
I think it's really,
you
really
do
funny.
animals?
Oh no!
I just
love
the way that Manny's
Once,
desperately
when I was
looking for a reason
volunteering
why
at
he
an
can't do
animal
his
shelter,
job properly,
Just stop
and she's
right
just the
there.
perfect client, the perfect possible client.
Ever cheated
She's
on your taxes?
I've never
perfect.
paid
Obviously, he's
taxes
already
in
got
my
feelings
life.
for her.
I've never made enough money to be
Because
taxed. You know,
while
it's
obviously they
mostly been all
can't
volunteer
make
work.
her traditionally beautiful
cheated on your
via
husband?
the
Mr.
graphics of the
Calavera,
game
there's
because
no
she's a
ring on
skeleton,
my finger.
they're doing
There's
what
no
they
skin
can
on
to make it
me.
obvious
I
that
guess
he's
you'll just
attracted
have
to
to
her
trust
from
me
the
then.
very first moment that they meet, which I think is
Later.
really good.
Oh man, is that the best
And
you
the
can
kind of
do?
the way she's dressed and the way he's
Work
talking
with
to her
me,
and
Mitchie.
the
Give me
tone of
some
his voice
dirt.
and all that sort of thing.
Well, I could do
It's just a
something
really
about
nice
it
scene as the
now,
first
if
one
that
between
would
these two
help.
characters that
Wouldn't
turn out
count.
to be very important throughout the
Sorry,
game,
I
obviously.
give up.
Don't say that, Manny.
Excuse me, but I have to go straighten this
And
mess
so
out.
after you
Sorry
finish
to be
talking
so
to
much
her,
trouble, Mr. Calavera.
she's like apologizing to you, and it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense until you get a little like just past this bit, because it's like, why is she apologizing? Obviously,
I'm
because
sorry
you've
I
messed
let
up.
you down, Manny.
And she does apologize several times, like at the end when you walk out, and several times in the conversation, and just after you finish talking to her. And then as you go down here, and you're like, oh, let's go sort this out.
Hey, Funny Bone!
Out comes Don.
In my office now!
Where
You
he
vandalized company property in order to obtain secret
really,
information
really
so you could
lays
take
it on
your
Calavera here.
modified company
And
car and
this
your
is a really
unregistered
wonderful little,
driver
just this
and
line
run
here,
Domino here off the road.
where
All
it
in
points
order to
out all
steal
the
a
things that
client
Manny's
from
done
her
that are
legitimate
like
agent.
completely unacceptable if you kind of think about them.
There's
And it finally kind of pushes Manny over the edge to complain about it. And Domino, as usual, like we were saying earlier, back in the second video, he's very sarcastic and he's very kind of on top of things. And then this is kind of the final part of the setup for the game where Meche wanders off.
She had a ticket on the number 9. Why does she think she has to walk?
Now they have to go get her back.
Package I could find.
Manny wants to go get her back. That's the reason that he ends up trying to leave town and look for her, which is what we'll be doing next.
That woman was a saint and a shoe-in for a double N.
And also, it's kind of where it sets up the mystery of where World's having to all these double N, these number 9 tickets.
Because of your little stunt, she's out there.
And Don really lays it on him again. We see how sad Manny is, which is it's important for setting up exactly why he's going to now go on a very quite long quest, because the game isn't particularly long, because like a lot of adventure games, it gets a lot of its gameplay time through trying to work out the puzzles. So once you've actually know what you're doing, the actual game isn't very long. The series of videos probably won't be much more than 6 hours. But the course of the game, like the actual storyline of the game, takes over 4 years. So, you know, Manny is being set up here for a very long period of his life, or death, I suppose. And so they lock you in this tiny little room. And there's an interesting number of these in the game where it just gives you a tiny little scenario that you need to get out of. And I think those are good for adventure games most of the time. But the problem, I think, with some of the Grim Fandango ones is it's not very clear exactly what you can interact with a lot of the time, and sometimes they require stuff in your inventory and that sort of thing. But if you're gonna do this kind of thing where you're gonna lock a player in a room for in a small room with very few options, I think what they have to do needs to become obvious very quickly. This isn't the worst of them. This one's actually fine. Like all you really have to do is
Doesn't open.
try and get out the door. Which would immediately be your first reaction, of course, and that kind of sets up what you need to do. And it's basically just talking with this guy, but there's some later on that aren't quite as good as that. We'll get to them, and we'll talk about them at the time. So you're talking to the shadow here,
Or rather,
who turns out to be one of the more important characters
yeah, well,
in the
I'm me
game.
now, so get lost.
And the first thing he says to you there, which is that I was you many years ago, is he actually used to have Manny's job.
I'm thinking about getting out
just
and getting
power
even.
through this so
That's
you
it.
can see
The
what it
only
is.
way out, Manuel, is to be taken back in. If you are truly still loyal to this company, declare it loudly. The management.
This is
might
very
hear
strange, and
and
this
stick you
always
back in their
confused
fold.
me when I was younger. Again, when I was playing it for the first time, because I just want to do what the game tells me to do. And the game there is saying,
The DOD runs a crooked game,
well, you know,
and I intend to
say
prove
what
it.
you
would
say that
do
you
that?
don't mind
That
what the
could
DoD
cause
is
this
doing,
agency a lot of trouble.
and what he actually wants you to do
I'm gonna blow the
is
lid off this
declare
place.
your
Young man,
independence and
you
how
are an
angry you
enemy
are
of
with
the
the Department of
Death.
Death, and therefore he's going to let you
Welcome
out.
to the club. Salvador Limones.
This is Salvador
and guest.
Limones, who now starts this rebel movement. It's been going for a little while as the implication, but this is the first time when they actually managed to get more support from important people like Manny. And Manny has more contacts than they do, and is able to do different things because he's not. Well, mostly because he's not dressed in a uniform. It's probably for the best if you're running a subversive intelligence organization that's trying to defeat a web of corruption, as Salvador puts it. You might not want to dress in uniforms the whole time. That would be my advice. So this now sets up kind of the other half of the game, because I'd say that there were two halves to the plot, and that's that these. The number 9 tickets are being stolen from souls that deserve them. And therefore they have to try and get to the final resting place, which is where the number 9 goes in 4 minutes. They have to then get there via walking, and that's very dangerous, as we'll see as we go kind of on that journey ourselves. And obviously the other half is searching for Meche, which initially Manny says is to get his job back, but that disappears very, very quickly. And Salvador is talking to him about that at one point.
We might be of some use to each other.
So there's now two things. This kind of branches into two little bits, and interestingly, a lot of the older LucasArts games, and then, for example, some of the earlier Telltale games, the Monkey Island one especially, had the whole 3 trials thing, where you need to do 3 different things, and then that'll progress you to the next bit of the game. And Grim Fandango doesn't do that, or if it does, it's a lot better hidden than it was, particularly in the old Monkey Island games, and again in Telltale's games. There's only 2 things you need to do here, and those have a number of tasks that you need to do them, and it's a lot better structured than the more obvious ways that Secret Monkey Island and other games are. So you have to talk to Salvador here and say, look, I don't want to be part of your
but this is war, Manuel, and you
war,
are the
and I
first
don't want to be part of your
draftee.
organisation.
Okay, I'm in.
Salvador's like not having any of it, and Manny just wants to get out, which is interesting. But immediately he's not interested in being brought into another organisation. He doesn't really have any interest, it seems, in righting the injustice. He just wants to make sure that he's done what helps him fix his own problems, is what I'm trying to say, yeah.
If I grab some pigeons off the roof, will you let me go?
So Salvador wants
I need to raise
pigeons,
them from birth, Agent Calavera. I
but
need
he's
you
their
to
eggs.
bring me their eggs.
I'm off.
So we need to go
Farewell,
get
Agent
that,
Calavera.
and then
Viva la revolución!
the other thing that we need to do is get a mould of our teeth for Ava, so that she can use the computers. And she says that if you talk to her, but I'll just skip that. So here's something interesting. As you can see here, there's a shadow on the ground, and if we go back to the original version, that shadow's still there. It's a little less defined, obviously, but if we walk in here, I always love this shot, as you can see the shadow of the thing, but if we turn it off, it's not there. And I always loved it, that it was there. I thought it was a really nice visual effect that they put together. And it for some reason it's just disappeared in the remastered version. I'm not sure exactly why that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back up the ties here, because we need to get onto the roof to get these pigeon eggs. Manny's very scary climb there. So we can't get back into our boss's office now because Domino's in there.
It's locked.
Domino's in there with Don and
The drapes are drawn. Dom and Don will still be in there.
And obviously they don't know that we've gone out of the hut they put us in the basement.
Dom's office is empty.
But now we can get to Dom's office. That's the same animation that plays even if there isn't another window to lean on, and a bit of reuse there. So you can try and get into
I'm gonna try to guess his password.
Dom's password. And there's a bunch of these, and it's classic LucasArts style of thing where
It's not Golden Boy.
he'll go through, I think there's about 20 of them he goes through. Open up this drawer here. Get a bit of
It
coral,
looks like a glowing hunk of coral.
which we need for a bit in a moment. And while we're here, we can take our anger out. And again, the coral references forward to something that happens later on. And what are the locations that you end up in. And it's just a hint as to what Domino's been doing and the plans that are already in motion then come to fruition over the course of the next couple of years within the game.
Ugh, Domino had this in his mouth.
Which is not what he wants to be touching. And you can steal a bit of Domino's booze here. I'm not sure if this also...
He doesn't even hide his booze. What kind of salesman is he?
No. So there is some stuff with some booze later on. There's like a puzzle that involves it, but they don't take the foreshadowing route there, and it's interesting that the stuff that they've decided to reference and the stuff that they just kind of let you work out on your own, and I suppose it's a sort of difficulty curve. So what we want to do is throw this up there to try and hook it on, but first we need a grappling hook type item. And this gives me a good chance to talk about this inventory system. So we got to the item that we wanted pretty quickly there, but as far as I can tell, it's completely random what item it starts you on, and exactly kind of what order it goes through these and where they are in your inventory. And in the remaster, so what they've done for the remaster is it's just graphical and audio. They didn't update any of this inventory stuff, they didn't update really any of the systems. They added the mouse click because there was a guy who did a mod for it. That originally, like, it modded the first one so that you could use mouse click, and they brought him in to help them modify the code and make that happen. But the fact that they've gone so much effort to remake the game and redo all these models and redo the whole orchestra and record all this commentary, and they didn't think they could just, because all you do, just replace this, or just have this, and then there's a button you can press and it just brings up an overlay, and you just click on the item you want and he brings it out. And I don't know much about like game development. I don't know how difficult that would be, but it just seems like something that would be relatively simple compared to even redesigning the models or doing the commentary or making this audio to just vastly improve the game, because you use the system so much, and it's just annoying, especially if you're playing on keyboard and you've got to like click through them all. And there are points in the game where you've got, I would say, upwards of 12 items in your inventory. It's just very frustrating. It's an example of the kind of thing that I feel like they could have fixed without too much effort. You know, I'm not asking for a massive redesign of systems. They just got to put an overlay up where you click on the item rather than selecting it, using the arrow keys, or you could, for consoles and stuff, you just select it with a selection cursor of some sort, and it would just improve it immeasurably. And there's a lot of things like that I'll point out as we go that I feel like they could have done to really take it to another level, and make it just a less feel like less of a rush job, basically. So what we need to do is scare these pigeons away. So we're going to put down the balloon of rubber frost.
Maybe that will scare them.
Maybe that'll scare them eventually. Probably not. So we've also got this bread from earlier. And this is a nice kind of little subtle thing, and they don't do this very much throughout the game, where this is something that Manny can only do because he's a skeleton. And because he's dead, and he just grinds it with his fingers. I mean, obviously you could do that with human fingers, but it would be quite as fast, and it's something that they're referencing with the bony fingers mentioned earlier, and how he says when you pick up the bread that he'll get crumbs everywhere if he tries to eat it. And they do a lot. They do enough of that where it's stuff that only really makes sense because Manny's already dead, and obviously it's kind of the whole way the world is built is like that. But individual little bits of puzzles where they reference that, I think is important as well, and I'm glad that they managed to put that in there. So now we can get the eggs.
Yeah.
Go on, Manny. There you go.
You must come with me, young ones, for I am the Grim Reaper.
Manny's little theatrics I also really enjoy.
I only eat them poached.
And the work done by Manny's voice actor, who obviously I've forgotten the name of, is absolutely extraordinary. And it's the sort of game where I think if you removed, if you played it just with subtitles, it would be so different. And obviously that's true of a lot of games, but it's so very strong here. And every single line is just delivered wonderfully, and I really love it. So you can see in the background here, let's do this now, that there is the Day of the Dead going on. That's why the streets are deserted, because everyone's at this kind of massive parade, and they go back and see their families, and because each time there's a time jump in the game, it goes by a year, and we'll see this probably in the next couple of videos. It's always the Day of the Dead throughout the game, and that's referenced particularly in the second part of the game, where that just lets them not have quite so many characters about, and also means it's always this consistent kind of point in time that it is, even though large amounts of time are passing. And it's a really lovely little detail as well about how it kind of gives you a glimpse into what life must be like living here in the land of the dead, or dying here, indeed. So I'll just deal with this inventory system again, and every time we deal with this, I'll go the wrong way. And maybe I'm an idiot, and I should have just learned to use it in one of my 5 or 6 playthroughs of this when I was younger, and the number of times that I've watched Grim Fandango the movie. And if you're wondering what that is, I will tell you next time, because we're going to finish up just after we get into the basement here. I hope everyone's enjoyed this one. I think it's gone a bit better than the last one. It's better than the first one as well. And the file size isn't quite so massive, so it shouldn't take me a massive amount of time to upload it. We'll do a save. Alright, and I'll see you next time.